Greetings students, Mauritius, your tutor for school subject mathematics, ACSE and DSE. This is the presentation on the exam based for 2020. My contact is 081 47 19337. In this presentation, I'm going to give you key points for your 2020 ACS-Mathematics that you need for your preparation. Remember that these points do not necessarily mean that you should neglect the other parts of your course outlined, as they have equal chances to appear in the examination. To start off, we are going to look at number system. Number system is a huge topic that includes the types of numbers, fractions and percentages, money, ration, and estimation. So you should be able to look at the types of numbers and know how to deal with fractions. You can be given a fraction and then be asked to write it. For example, you can be given two fractions and then you'll be asked to write it as a single fraction. Percentage, you look at what we call percentage increase, percentage decrease, and also reversed percentage. Money, there are a lot of subtopics that you can look at. There is compound interest, simple interest, and also how to deal with bills. Ration, it includes dealing with ratios and also rate. Estimation deals with limit of accuracy, lower and upper bounds, and other things. Now, just to look at two examples under this topic, we are going to start with first one, which reads as follows. The force of attraction, F, between two objects is inversely proportional to the square of the distance D between them. Now, when D is equal to 4, F is equal to 30. So the question can be, A, find an equation connecting F and D. So what we are dealing with here is proportionality. We have two types of proportionality, but now we are asked to deal with inverse proportionality. So to answer this question, when we have inverse proportionality, we know that in this case we have two quantities, which is force and distance. So we know that force is inversely proportional to distance squared. So that is what we have there. Now, this is not an equation. For us to make it an equation, we have to put an equal sign there and multiply what we have here with a constant k. So meaning that we have k over d squared. Then now we know that force is equal to 30 and d is equal to 4. We need to find the value of k. So to find the value of k, we just substitute in what we have. So force is 30. We do not know k, and distance is equal to 4, and then we square that. So we solve for k, and after solving for k, we have what we have here is 30 is equal to k over 16. Should use your calculator to find the value of 4 squared to give you 16. Now we have a fraction on one side and a whole number on one side. So we should create fractions of both sides by writing 30 over 1. So now the next thing that we should do is to cross multiply. Cross multiply so that you can solve for k. So after crossing multiply, we have 1k is equal to 30 multiplied by 16, and then so we'll get the value of k to be using your calculator, I believe it's 480. 30 multiplied by 16 gives you 480, not 430. Okay, we get k equals to 480. Now we go back to our equation with symbols. So we say then the equation, to answer this question, the equation is equal to f is equal to 480 over d squared. This is our final answer. Then let's look at b. Still, calculate f when d is equal to 8. We want to find the value of f when d is equal to 8. So we just substitute in the equation that we got. So in our final answer in A, so we take f is equal to 480 divided by 8 squared. Remember to put your numbers in brackets and the square out. So we use our calculator. We say answer divided by 8 squared is equal to 7. This means that f is equal to 7.5. So the 7.5 we got here is the value of f when d is equal to 8. Alright, we are moving on to the second question. Moving on to the second question, it reads as follows. Measured to the nearest millimeter, the side of a triangle are 11 millimeter, 13 millimeter, and 14 millimeter. So in other words, we have a triangle that measures, a triangle that measures 11 millimeter, 13 millimeter, 14 millimeter. It's not to scale, ne? Okay. Now, what we are told is that the perimeter of the triangle is p millimeter. So if we have to add these distances together, we get p millimeters. In other words, we do not know the perimeter. Complete the inequality below. So the inequality that we have to complete is p greater than or equal to and p less than this and this. So this question has to do with limit of accuracy, whereby you need to know the number that is here is called an upper bound, and the number that is here is called lower bound. So there are techniques that one has to use to find the lower bound and the upper bound. So, and that's simply by finding the limit of accuracy, the number that was used to round off these numbers here. So they are saying the measurements were done to the nearest millimeter. when they say nearest millimeter, there's no number here. The number that is there is a 1. So we are going to take 1, divide the 1 by 2. You always divide that number, the one that says that comes after, to the nearest. You always divide that number by 2, and then this gives us 0.5. It could be to the nearest 10 millimeter. So if it was to the nearest 10 millimeter, then you could have divided that number by 2. So okay, now what we are going to do to find the lower bound, you should subtract 0.5 from each value. Because these numbers were rounded off using to the nearest 0.5. So we have 14. For the lower bound, we subtract 14 minus 0.5 plus 13 minus 0.5 plus 11 minus 0.5, and then we get our answer to be 36.5. So meaning that this is the least perimeter we could get. Okay, now for the upper bound, you have to add. So 14 plus 0.5, 13 plus 0.5, and 11 plus 0.5, we get 39.5. So remember, this one is not included. The upper bound is never included, because if you have to round it off, it will be more than what we will need. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is algebra. Algebra involves a lot of topics. It includes a lot of topics, starting with algebraic representation, indices and standard form, algebraic manipulation. So moving on to the next part of algebra, we have polynomials, inequalities, and equations. So for polynomials, you have to know how to deal with them, know how to divide given terms by, let me say, you know how to divide polynomials by a monomial. You should also know how to simplify polynomials or writing polynomials in a different form using long division or synthetic division. When it comes to linear and quadratic equations, for linear equation, you just use the normal method. For quadratic equations, you can have 3 methods, which are completing of squares, quadratic trinomials, and a quadratic formula. Linear inequalities, you solve them similarly to the linear equations, but you do not change the sign of the inequality. You maintain that, you keep it. So let's look at a few examples and algebra. Looking at a few examples. Let's say you are asked to solve an equation. Let's say you are told to solve an equation. You are told to solve this. You want to solve 2 brackets x minus 4 brackets plus 3 brackets 5 minus 3 x brackets equals to 4. You have brackets. You will need to remove them before you find the value of x, because solving means finding the value of x. So first you have to expand. You multiply everything inside the brackets by the common factor. So the number out next to the bracket is called the common factor. So here, for example, you will have the answer will be 2 multiplied by x. Remember, 2 is positive, plus 2 multiplied by negative 4 plus 3. I always go back to this one. 3 multiplied by 5. I'll keep the plus 3 and then multiply it with what is coming from the inside. And then this is equal to a 4. So what is left is just to simplify this. This gives us 2x minus 8 plus 15 minus 9x equals to a 4. So we do not need equal signs here again, because we already have those equal signs. So simplifying this, we have like terms. We have 2x and negative 9x. So collecting them, they will give us 2x minus 9x will give us negative 7x. And then we also have these like terms. What we can do is to say negative 8 plus 15 gives us 7. So then this means that this is equal to 4 minus 7. How did we get the 7 again? We manipulated this. We added this. We solved this. So, and then at the end of the day, we'll have negative 7x equals to negative 3. So your answer that you get will be you have to divide both sides by negative 7. So the answer that you get is going to be x is equal to 3 over 7. Alright, that's what you get. Let's look at the last example under this topic. So remember, keep your answer as it is, especially when it's like this. Leave it in a fraction form, in a simplest form. Alright, the second example will be on making something the subject of the formula, substitution, and also coming up with an equation. So that's what you will be doing. So let's get started and solve this problem. Number 2a, the surface area of a person's body with this a square meters is given by the formula a is equal to square root hm divided by 3600. So we are given that the surface area of a certain body is given by this formula, where h represents the height of the person, m represents the mass. So now let's get started with Roman 1. Loretta is 16 centimeters high and has a mass of 70 kilograms. Calculate the surface area of her body. So what you're going to do here is just use substitution. We are given the value of m, we are given the value of h. So let's use substitution and get the answer right away. So we have age is 166. Remember, when you're substituting, you should use brackets. M is 70, and then everything over 3,600. All right, that's what you have there. Let's use our calculator and punch in whatever we have. Multiplied by 70 over 3,600. What are we getting? We are getting 1.79660173. So remember this, you cannot write this answer as a fraction, so meaning that it's an irrational number. So what you need to do is to round it off to 3 significant figures. So I will write the first 4 significant figures, which is 1.796. I don't want to round off this one for now. So now we want 3 significant figures. What we do, we look at the 4th number. We use the 4th number. Remember, this is 6 point, it goes on like that. We look at the 4th number. Is it more than 4? Yes. So then we add a number, a 1 to the previous number. This is giving us a 10. So we're going to borrow a 1 from the 10 and remain with a 0. Add that one here. And then so we have 0.8.1 as our final answer. Alright. The second question is, Derek has a mass of 80 kilogram. Find his height if the area is equal to 1.99. So again, we are still using substitution. So what we are going to do here is to substitute in all what we know. We know the mass, we know the area. So area here is equal to 1.99, and then this is equal to square root. What do we know of? We know of the mass is 80, and then we'll get 80h over 3,600. That's what we get there. Now, the h that we are interested in is under the square root. So we need to get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. So what you do on one side of the equation, you should do it on the other side. That's why it's called an equation. Now we will remain with 80h over 3,600 equals to, I'll keep this one as it is, 9 squared, and then from there just make this one over 1, cross multiply so that you can get 1.99 squared multiplied by 3,600. You get a huge number, which is 1,425.36, and then you say this is equal to 80h. So now you need to get rid of the 80. So, and I believe you can take it on from here. So this is where we are stopping with that, with this question. So let's look at another one. So here we are told that Derek runs Derek runs a race at an average speed of x meters per second. So the speed that we have here is x. So we know that s is equal to x, and then we are told that the time is equal to 3x minus 9, and the race distance is 2x squared minus 8 meters. So what is the question? The question is write down an equation in terms of x and show that it simplifies to x squared minus 9x plus 8 is equal to 0. Okay, so in other words, this is an algebraic word problem whereby you need to know the formula connecting the three parameters. So what is that formula? We know that speed is equal to distance divided by time. So we are going to use this formula and just plug in what we have here and then take it on from there. So we know that s is equal to x and d is equal to 2x squared minus 8. So it's best if you can put these ones in brackets over the time is 3x minus 9. So we have that. Now from there, this is over 1, cross multiply so that you obtain, this means that you're going to multiply x with everything in these brackets, and you're going to multiply this with a 1. So what you're going to have after you have done everything is that we will have 3x squared minus 9x equals to 2x squared minus 8. That's what we'll get. Collect like terms. Move everything to the other side, because on this side we only want 0. So then it will have like terms, which is now going to be 3x squared minus 2x squared. That will give us just x squared, and then with the 8 there's no other like term, but then we have minus 9x. It doesn't also have a partner, so it's fine. Bring 8 to this side, becomes positive, and then equals to 8. So we have shown that x squared, we have shown that the equation that we have written here simplifies to this. So that is good. The next question they can ask you to do is to solve for the equation that you came up with. So it's fine, and I believe you find a way to solve that. So the other one, in addition to what we have there, is they can say write down Derek's time and the distance of the race. So remember, x represents the speed, but we have time that is represented by 3x minus 9. So to get the time, you're going to use 3x minus 9, and the place of x, you just put the x value that you got in using the equation x squared minus 9x plus 8. Now this is what you should be careful with. If you are going to get two values of x, one of them can give you a positive time and one of them can give you a negative time. So the x value that is giving you a positive time is the one that is correct. The one that is giving you a negative time or a negative distance is wrong. So because these physical quantities, time and distance, will never be negative. So moving on, we have logarithms and sequences. So you need to know how to deal with logarithms and indices. So know how to solve, how to simplify indices, expressions, and also know how to solve fractional indices. With logarithms, you should know how to separate them, and also know how to write them as a single log. Sequences, just know how to find the nth term and also how to come up with a sequence. Okay, moving on to the next topic, which is graphs and functions. Graphs in practical situations deals with these types of graphs, like conversion graphs, and so you need to know how to interpret conversion graphs. You need to know how to interpret conversion graphs, know how to deal with speed time graphs or distance time graphs. So know how to deal with them. Solving equations graphically. Remember, we have what we call simultaneous equations, for example. So we can solve them using either elimination, substitution, or graphs. So know how to interpret graphs by solving for x. Moving on, we have functions and linear programming. Function notation involves finding an inverse function and dealing with composite functions. Linear programming, you should be able to find inequalities, and sometimes you can be asked to shade an unwanted region. So those are the things that you should be able to do. Now, giving a few example in functions notation that are a little bit troublesome. So let's look at this question. When we have f of x equals to x to the power of 1 over 3 and g of x equals to 2x squared minus 5. So they will tell you, given that this is equal to that and that is equal to that, for all values of x, we want to find a, Roman 1, we want to find g of 4. So if you check very well in this equation, 4 is exactly at the place of x. So this would mean that wherever you see a x here, you should put a 4. So this will be 2 brackets, because I see a x here, 4, then squared minus 5. Now this is 16 multiplied by 2 is 32, minus 5 gives us 27. Gives us 27. So g of 4 is equal to 27. Okay, let's look at the Roman 2. We want to find f of g of 4. This is what we call composite function. So if you check very well, this thing here is at the place of x in our original equation. So this means that we are going to take whatever is equal to g of 4 and put it at the place of x in f of x. So we already got our answer. So in other words, this is equivalent to f of 27. So then, therefore, f of g of 4 is equal to 27 to the power of 1 over 3. So that is what we have there. You can decide to use a calculator or just solve it. We know that this is 3 to the power of 3. So the 3 will cancel with the other 3 and then we just get a 3. Alright. Just to say more about this, whenever you have a problem like this means that you should first solve this. After solving this, then you insert it in the first function. Okay. 2 more questions using similar functions, or the same functions to say. Let's say you are told to find an expression b. We want to find, remember we are busy finding, find g of f of x in terms of x. So we should leave our answers in terms of x. So this is going to be, if you check very well, we have g of x and f of x. Now, this f of x is at the place of x for g of x. So this means that we are going to take the whole function of f of x and put it wherever we see a x in g. So this is going to be 2 brackets. I see a x here, so at this place I'll put the whole of f of x, which is x 1 over 3, and then minus a 5. I forgot something. The x that is here is squared, so you must square it. Then from there, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have 2x 2 over 3 minus 5. There's nothing we can do here. We stop there. Nothing. Nothing further that we can do. We stop there because this expression is in its simplest form. Let's look at the last one, which is to find. We want to find f inverse of x. This is called an inverse function. So how do you do it? The first step, remember our f of x is equal to x 1 over 3. So what we're going to do is to change this f of x is the same as y. So then we will have y is equal to x 1 over 3. So now to find the inverse, you must interchange or exchange. At the place of x you put a y, and the place of y you put x. So meaning that we will have x is equal to y 1 over 3. The next thing that you are going to do is to make y the subject of the formula. First, exchange the places of the variables x and y, and then next make y the subject of the formula. So we have y to the power of 1 over 3. How do I get rid of 1 over 3? I must take a cube on both sides so that this and this cancels, and then I will have y is equal to x cubed. this is the inverse function, but we do not leave it like this. We have to write f of inverse of x is equal to x cubed. Alright, this makes the end of the examples on this topic. We are moving on to the next topic, which is coordinate geometry. Under coordinate geometry, I advise you to know the properties of geometrical shapes. By properties of geometrical shapes, I mean know the properties of a square, the properties of a rhombus, the properties of a parallelogram, and so on. Also, in this topic, they can ask you to find the gradient of perpendicular lines and parallel lines, the midpoint, then the distance between 2 points. So the formula of gradient is m is equal to y squared minus, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. That is the formula for finding the gradient. The midpoint is just a coordinate, the coordinates of the 2 points. You add them together, like the x values, you add them together, divide them by 2, and then you go to the y values, add them together, and then divide them by 2. That's what you get there. This is for finding the midpoint. Okay, for the distance, you have to use distance is equal to square root x2 minus x1, and then you square it, plus y2 minus y1, and then you square it. Everything is under the square root. So let's move on to geometry. Geometrical terms and relationships should get your attention. Construction, meaning that you have to look at things like locus, where they can ask you to construct certain boundaries. Symmetry and geometrical properties should also get your attention. The other topic is mensuration. For mensuration, you should be able to calculate volumes, areas, and total surface areas of different shapes and different solids. So also they can ask you to find the rate using a rate of something, for example a rate at which the water is flowing through a pipe, and so on. The other topic is trigonometry. We have Pythagoras theorem. You should know how to use the Pythagoras theorem. Bearings, cosine and sine rules should get your attention. Also, when it comes to the sine rule, know the sine rule for calculating the area of non-90-degree triangles. Statistics. Here you should know graphs, how to draw them, like for example histograms, pie charts, and others. Also know the 3 averages, which is mean, the mode, and the median. Know how to draw and interpret cumulative frequency graphs and tables. And the second last topic, which is probability. Know how to deal with the probability scale. We also have types of events in probability, which is independent and dependent. And then we have the last one, which is transformations and vectors. So we have different types of transformations. For example, enlargement, translation, rotation and reflection. I think I mentioned all of them, so know how to deal with them. And then we have vectors. Look at that also. Okay, this makes the end of our presentation. I wish you all the best. In the other source that you can use is the y is equal to mx plus c textbook for grade 12. Thank you.